You're listening to the Align and Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Minigan. In this episode, we are going to be diving into webinar content. And I really used to think that teaching was the only way to provide value in webinars. I felt very uncomfortable selling in webinars, and I do come from an education background, but I want to show you what actually worked and how you can still teach in your webinars in a way that really adds value, but actually still sells your program too. So, what I hear often when you hear about creating content on webinars is that you shouldn't over teach. You shouldn't do too much how-to content. You shouldn't over teach, because if you over teach, you've lost the sale. That's what I find a lot of coaches will tell you. And I just found that so uncomfortable because I really feel comfortable teaching. I mean, that's what I do in this podcast. I love teaching. I love helping people. And I was like, why would anyone want to come to a webinar if I'm not providing value, if I'm not teaching? Because in my mind, I equated teaching with value. And what I would say first is that you actually can still teach on your webinar. And in fact, I would recommend it. You don't want to have a webinar that's filled with fluff and that is not helpful for people. I run regular webinars and people rave about my webinars and say just how valuable and helpful it was and how much they appreciated the content. I still teach, and it is the main way that I fill my program, Signature Program Design. But the thing you want to avoid is teaching the wrong things. Teaching the wrong things is going to cost you sales, and I want to share why. So in this episode, I'm going to share what kind of teaching you should avoid, what kind of teaching you can include that's going to be valuable and also sells your program, and examples of how to create that content for your next webinar. So let's dive in. The reason that a lot of people, if you teach too much, quote unquote, too much, you will lose the sale, is for a number of reasons. Sometimes you might overwhelm your clients with content, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, there's just so much here. Like, I can't even take your program. I have too much to go through right now." Or they might think like, "Oh, I've got what I need. I'm good. I don't need your program," right? And I really learned this firsthand, where I remember one summer for maybe 4 months or so, I really wanted to create regular trainings for my clients. I was like, I really want to build that know, like, and trust factor. I really want to build connection with people. And this is when I was helping teachers. I want to do these regular trainings. And so I would work and create this new training. I can't remember how often I would do them, at least once a month. Probably, it might have even been like once a week or once every 2 weeks, quite often. And I would create new content every time, which is total mistake right there. But anyway, I would create new content every time because I thought, well, if people come to my trainings multiple times, I don't want to teach the same thing over and over. That's going to feel like a waste of time for them. It needs to be new content every time. And I want it to be valuable. So I'm going to teach them a little something, and then I'm going to invite them to my program. And as you can imagine, I wasn't really getting very many sales from this. And I was getting people that would come to my workshops often and say, "Oh, I love your content. Thanks so much for doing this. This is so helpful. Thanks so much for creating this free content for teachers, because not all of us can afford to invest. And I so appreciate that you do this free thing." And I was like, this is not the intention for what this was supposed to be for. And so I had a coach at the time who graciously looked at one of my trainings, and she said, "Lauren, you are over teaching." And I was like, "What? I have dialed back my teaching. I feel like I'm hardly giving them anything. I'm over teaching still? How can that possibly be?" But when I look back, I absolutely was. And again, I don't like to think of it as over teaching. I was teaching the wrong things. So here's what I was doing. I was giving how to step-by-step content and really sharing like first step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this, step 4, do this. And the reason that this doesn't work is for someone who really needs your step-by-step content, they're not committed enough to actually go through that content. And for someone who is just looking for some extra ideas, who doesn't really need your program, they're going to be the ones that take action on this. So let me give you an example. So I was helping teachers create systems, classroom systems. I was helping them simplify how they were creating their curriculum, which is what I do still in signature program design. And I was helping them stop working evenings and weekends. And I had this one teacher who came all the time. And for the longest time, I was like, why do you come to my things? You're an experienced teacher. You're super organized. You have systems, like you have a system for everything in your classroom. Like your classroom is a well-oiled machine. Why are you coming to my trainings? And it dawned on me that she was coming because I gave her more ideas of different systems that she could include in her classroom. And it was just like an easy thing for her to listen to. And she was like, oh, I'll go apply that. That's a great idea. And she would go and apply it. And I was just giving her free ideas, which I could have done like in a podcast, but it wasn't going to make sales. She didn't need my program. And then I would get other people who did need my program. They would come to my trainings. They wouldn't buy, and they wouldn't take action on the things that I was teaching them because 2 reasons. For one, people who pay attention. Because when you pay for something, that's when you commit, right? That's when you go through this moment of like, oh, do I want to do this? Should I actually put the money down? I don't know. And when you decide to pay, you've committed to this thing, you're going to show up, and that's what's going to inspire you to take action. So the teachers who were coming to my trainings didn't ever have that experience of commitment. They were just coming to this free thing and they would listen to it and they're like, oh, that's a good idea. And then they wouldn't go to apply it because they weren't committed. And the other reason is because it was out of context. So when you create a signature process, it needs to be developed so that your ideal clients can go from point A to point B, right? In the fastest way possible. And if you're just giving trainings with random how-to content, like you would listen to in a podcast, you might be able to apply it here and there, but it's out of context. So if someone's really struggling, like if I had a teacher who was really struggling with their systems and was just in reaction mode and just putting up fires all day, they don't have time to put my systems into place because there was all this other foundational stuff that I needed to work through with them before they could even apply that. So it wasn't actually all that helpful for those teachers anyway. So what you want to think about is avoiding that how-to content. And I want to share what kind of content you can teach instead. It's going to be really helpful for your clients. And the last way that I'll teach you this, because I remember listening to this a lot and people would say like, avoid how-to content, avoid how step-by-step content. And I was like, great. I don't really know if I'm doing that or not. And the easiest way that I wrapped my mind around it, and maybe this will help you, maybe it won't, but I like to share it just in case it does, is when I used to teach math. So maybe take yourself back to math class if you have never been a teacher, and when you learned about fractions, okay? So teaching about fractions. What you want to do in your sales content is the what and the why. So if we think about fractions, we're saying, this is what they are. This is what they look like. If you see a piece of pie, it's like a section is cut out of the pie. This is a fraction, right? And the reason this is important, the why, is because it's going to teach you percentages. You need to understand this to understand sales. If you're going to go shopping, you need to understand it so that you can, you can understand money transactions, whatever you want to say that's going to, relate to a kid learning about fractions. You need to teach the what and the why. And kids can understand that when they're learning about fractions, but it's the getting into the step-by-step of like actually putting pen to paper or pencil to paper in this case, where they actually have to do the work and like rack their brain to figure out how fractions work. that kids are going to groan at you and they're not going to want to do that, right? And that is what we want to avoid in your webinars. You don't want the like, oh, I have to do this and like this is so hard and I have to like really focus and use my brain to understand and make this happen. You just want to give them the what and why so they're like, oh, I get that. That makes sense. But they don't have to think too hard to understand the concept. Does that make sense? So what you want to do is avoid step-by-step how-to content, the pencil to paper, learning the fractions. And instead, you want to teach the what and the why when you're teaching more of the how-to. But the right kind of teaching, and this is the thing that really changed the game for me, was understanding what beliefs to shift in my webinars. What beliefs to shift in my webinars. That is the thing that I teach. So what you want to think about is what is the thing, what is the vehicle that you help people with? So do you help people with self-regulation? Do you help people with developing a healthy relationship with food? Do you help parents develop like self-regulation and boundaries so they can connect with their child? Whatever it is, what is the main vehicle, the thing that you teach that gets them the result that they want? So you want to think about that vehicle. And this can be a bit tricky, but like what is the main, like the modality that you use, the skill that you teach? What's the thing that you're teaching, right? If you really drill it down. Then you want to think about what objections do people have to my vehicle? So for example, my vehicle, the thing that I teach is creating a signature program, right? I'm going to help you create a signature program, one that feels aligned, one that you love, one that gets transformations. And when you have that signature program, you can really help your clients. It's scalable and you can create that growing consistent revenue because you're selling the same thing over and over again. You're always improving it, refining it. It becomes the thing that you're known for, right? What objections are my potential clients going to have to the idea of creating a signature program? One of the big ones, a few. Some of the objections people might have, one of the big ones that I hear is that it's not the right time to create a signature program. And underneath that, the objection is creating a signature program sounds daunting and overwhelming, and I need to have everything, all my ducks in a row to be able to do it because otherwise I won't be able to do it justice. It won't be good enough. I won't be able to, basically perfectionism comes into play, right? And so if someone thinks, oh yeah, I really want to create a signature program, but now's not the right time because that just is way too much and I don't have time for that right now, they're not going to buy my program. You know what I mean? So one of the beliefs to shift in my workshops that I'm going to be incorporating now, that I realize that this is a big thing that people get hung up on, is I want to show you how you can make it simpler to create your signature program. I also want to show you that it's not about the right time, it's about commitment, right? It's not about the right time, it's about commitment. Because when you think about anything big that you want to do, like when you started your business, was it the perfect time? Probably not. When you've gone traveling, when you've started a family, like it doesn't necessarily feel like it's the perfect time, but you do it anyway, right? There is no real perfect time. And when you think about a signature program, often people think that creating a signature program is this big thing because it feels like, oh, it needs to be this perfect signature, like this big thing. And I just don't have the bandwidth to create that right now. But a signature program isn't created like over a few months and then it's your signature program and everything has to be perfect the first get-go. No, like it's something that evolves with you, that you run your first version and you iterate and you get feedback and then you improve it and you refine it. And it becomes this process that you develop over time, your own signature process. It would be like when you think about drawing, if you're creating a painting, you don't just start painting and it's created, right? Generally speaking, an artist will sketch it out, and they'll first think about it, what they want to create, and then they'll sketch it out, and then they might put the first few layers of paint. Like if you're thinking about watercolor, for example, there's like layers, right? You create the first few layers, the washes, and then you add the details, and then you let it dry, and then you add the next details. That's what creating your signature program is. It's developed over time. It doesn't have to be this big thing that you have all this bandwidth for. And so I need to shift that belief that I need to have the perfect time. I need to have the right amount of time. It's this big thing. No. This is something that you can integrate into your life right now if you are committed, right? So the right kind of content is, you can do some how-to, but the big thing is thinking about what objections do people have, the right people, the people that are like meant to do your thing, but I want to do this, but what is their but? And create content to help them see things in a different way. I want to give you some examples about how you can do this for your webinar. And I actually created a post on this topic a little while ago that I'm going to link up in the show notes for you so you can see a visual of how to do this, like what's A, what's B, but I'm going to talk you through it here. But click on the link and you can check it out on Instagram. The title of the post is the same as this episode. I thought teaching was the only way to provide value in webinars. Here's what actually worked. So what you want to do is you want to figure out what the belief is that is holding them back from joining your program. So you want to think about like the objection to your vehicle. It's not universal objections, like I need to talk to my partner first, it's too much money, those kinds of things. You want to think about what is specific to your program. So in these examples, I have two, one for a parenting coach and one for my program. So one objection, if you're a parenting coach, is you might have someone who says, my child is different and unique. It's a unique flower and nothing works for them. And so this might be a parent who's tried all these different strategies. It's not working for their child. Maybe their child's, neurodivergent or whatever reason that the parent comes up with, because I understand, I'm a parent, and I also know when I was a teacher that a lot of people think that their child is unique, and you're like, oh, no, this is normal for this age group. But a lot of people think, my child is different, therefore this won't work for me. So what you want to say is you identify the cause and the meaning they are making of it. So A is the cause. My child is different, therefore nothing works. So this is the belief. My child is different. Therefore, the results, the consequences of that is nothing works. Then you want to shift the belief. So if you look at the post, A doesn't cause B, it causes C. Your child is different. I'm going to acknowledge that. Your child is different. Therefore, you need strategies tailored to your child's unique temperament, not a one-size-fits-all approach. That's why in the program that I run, we actually have specific strategies for different child temperaments so you can find the right one for your child. So, therefore, you need strategies tailored to your child's unique temperament. So, A doesn't cause B, it causes C. Your child is different, therefore you need different strategies. So that's the first example. The next one that I can give is, I don't need to learn program design. I'll just teach what I know. So sometimes people think like, I don't, like sometimes people will just say like, I'll get like comments on my ads like, oh yeah, instructional design. Like they're kind of like, that's obvious. I'm like, is it obvious? Because a lot of people don't use instructional design when they create their programs. They just teach what they know. And they try to like take all the content in their mind and they just put it into a course, which isn't necessarily going to get people transformations. It's just going to give them more information. So let's look at this belief. A, I can just teach what I know. Therefore, I don't need to learn about program design or instructional design. That's a B. So to shift this belief is teaching what you know can cause overwhelm in your clients and stop them from getting results. So you want to change the cause, the consequence. So what they're thinking is, I can just teach what I know, therefore I don't need to learn about program design. And I'm saying, no, there's a different result there. This result is it can overwhelm your clients and stop them from getting results. Then, and I didn't include this in the post that I want to share with you, one of my favorite SOM patterns, slide of mouth patterns, you can look them up. There's a bunch of them. The two that I like to use are either, it's not about that, it's about this, for example, or metaphors. So let's take the child one. So you could start saying, your child is different, therefore you need strategies tailored to your child's unique temperament, not a one-size-fits-all approach. So you might say, it's not about your child. It's not that your child is different and it won't work for them. It's about having the right strategies tailored to their temperament. So it's not about this, it's about that. And that will help people shift and go, oh, okay, now I see what you're saying. So that's the first idea that you can use. It's not about this, it's about that. It's not about X, it's about Y. The other one that I like to use is a metaphor to reinforce the new belief that you are helping people open up to see. And so I did this earlier on in this episode when I was talking about creating your program. So again, the objection that I'll get is that creating a program is daunting. It's going to be time consuming. It's a big deal. It's going to take me a lot of time to create my signature program. And what I want to say is you don't create your program once, you create it over time in like layers or phases. And the metaphor that I used is, you don't create a painting all in one go. You create it in layers. First, you imagine what it's going to look like. Then you sketch it out. Then you do the first layer of paint. You let it dry. Then you add the second layer of paint. You add details. And it is developed over time in phases. Your program is the same. You don't need to have it perfect right off the get-go. You create the first version of it. You put it into the world, try it out, and then get some feedback, improve it, and put it out again. And it's something that is developed over time. It's like this living, breathing thing, this signature process that you are creating, right? So you don't need to let this feeling of, oh, it's this big daunting thing and I'm going to have, it's going to be so hard for me to create. No, it's something that you create over time with feedback, and you just have the minimum viable product that you create the first time, and then you improve it and refine it and refine it. Put it out before it's perfect and perfect it as you go. And so the metaphor I use is the idea of painting, because it creates this visual to represent what it is that I'm saying. Does that make sense? So that is how you can think about creating content for your next webinar. So let's recap. In this week's episode, we talked about, it's not about over teaching. It's about avoiding teaching that is step-by-step how-to content. Instead, the kind of content that is going to be valuable and sells your program is identifying what beliefs are stopping your ideal clients from buying from you, and helping them shift that belief to see more possibility in their world in order to help them get the results. What beliefs do they have to have in order to buy from you? And some examples that we talked about is that we looked about that cause and consequence. It's not about this belief that causes this. It's about that causes this. So changing the cause and effect. So A doesn't equal B, it equals C. And then reinforcing that with a metaphor can really help people see a different way of looking at the problem and the goal that they want to achieve. So I hope this week was helpful for you. If you found it valuable, I would love it if you left me a review on your podcast listener, I guess, of choice. If you listen on iTunes or Spotify or whatnot, I would love to see your reviews. It helps other people discover the show. It does not have to be very long. A quick one would be amazing. And I will see you on next week's episode of the Align and Inspire podcast.